The studio lights inside the view glowed with an intensity that felt almost theatrical, casting a polished sheen across the famous round table where so many heated conversations had unfolded over the years. On this particular afternoon, however, the energy in the room carried a different weight. Producers moved briskly behind the cameras, whispering into headsets. Audience members shifted in their seats with a mixture of excitement and curiosity, sensing that this would not be an ordinary celebrity appearance. The buzz had started long before the show went live. Word had spread that one of Hollywood's most enigmatic and unpredictable legends was about to walk through those studio doors when a figure like Jack Nicholson agrees to sit down for a daytime television interview. Expectations automatically soar. Nicholson is not just another movie star doing press rounds. He is a cultural force, a man whose career spans decades of cinematic brilliance, controversy, reinvention, and raw authenticity. Known for his piercing stare, devilish grin, and commanding presence, he has built a reputation for being as compelling off-screen as he is on it. Audiences remember him not only for iconic roles, but also for his unfiltered remarks, his rebellious spirit, and his refusal to conform to Hollywood's polished public relations mold. Bringing that kind of personality into a live studio environment is always a gamble. The anticipation intensified as the co-hosts prepared at the table. Papers were shuffled, coffee mugs were adjusted, the camera operators checked angles twice, ensuring they would capture every expression, every raised eyebrow, every subtle shift in body language. The control room was unusually alert. The producers knew that when strong personalities collide, television magic or chaos can result. Ratings thrive on unpredictability, but so do reputations suffer from it. This delicate balance hung in the air like static electricity before a storm. Seated at the table with her characteristic confidence was Joy Behar. For years, Behar had built her brand on sharp wit, political commentary, and a fearless approach to questioning guests. Her interviewing style could be playful one moment and piercing the next. She was no stranger to controversy, nor did she shy away from confrontation when she felt it was warranted. As she flipped through her neatly organized notes, a faint smirk crossed her face, subtle but noticeable. To some, it signaled excitement. To others, it hinted at strategy. She had reportedly been looking forward to this interview for weeks, viewing it as an opportunity not just to promote Nicholson's latest project, but to engage him in a conversation that might reveal something deeper. Something headline-worthy. Across from her sat Whoopi Goldberg, whose calm authority often served as the show's stabilizing force. Goldberg understood the delicate dance required when interviewing powerful personalities. She knew when to let a guest speak and when to redirect the conversation. As the show's introduction music faded and the audience applause signaled the beginning of another live broadcast, she maintained her poised expression, though even she could sense the heightened anticipation rippling through the studios. The audience itself played a crucial role in the atmosphere. Many had grown up watching Nicholson dominate the silver screen. For them, seeing him just a few feet away felt surreal. There were fans clutching programs, others whispering excitedly about their favorite films. Some speculated whether he would charm the hosts with humor or challenge them with candor. The unpredictability was part of his legend. He had always walked the line between charismatic and confrontational, and no one could quite predict which side would emerge that day. As the introduction began, the studio seemed to hold its collective breath. Whoopi's voice rang out clearly, confident and resonant. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incomparable Jack Nicholson." The applause erupted, instantly loud, sustained, almost reverent. It wasn't the polite clapping reserved for routine guests. It was the thunderous reception reserved for icons. The doors opened, and Nicholson stepped onto the stage with that unmistakable swagger, his smile both warm and mysterious. He acknowledged the audience with a slight nod, exuding a quiet dominance that required no exaggeration. From the moment he took his seat at the table, the dynamic shifted. His presence altered the energy of the room. Even the co-hosts, seasoned veterans of live television, seemed momentarily aware that they were sharing space with someone who commanded cultural gravity. The polite exchanges began pleasantries about his latest project, light jokes about Hollywood, a few nostalgic reflections on his storied career. Laughter rippled through the studio, easing the tension slightly, yet beneath the surface there was an undercurrent that couldn't be ignored. Joy Behar leaned forward occasionally, her eyes scanning her notes before locking onto Nicholson with calculated precision. She wasn't merely engaging in friendly banter. She appeared to be steering the conversation, inch by inch, toward more provocative territory. Viewers at home could sense it too. Social media feeds began lighting up in real time as fans speculated about what might happen next. The contrast between Nicholson's cool composure and Behar's assertive questioning style created a palpable tension. It was the classic setup for a television moment that could either become legendary for its insight or infamous for its intensity. Every raised eyebrow, every pause before an answer, felt amplified under the studio lights. The cameras captured close-ups of subtle expressions that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. What made the situation especially compelling was the collision of two very different worlds. On one side sat a Hollywood titan whose career had been shaped by artistic risk-taking and personal authenticity. On the other side was a seasoned talk show host, accustomed to navigating political debates and cultural controversies in real time. The potential for sparks was undeniable. Each question carried weight. Each response had the power to escalate or diffuse the situation. As the interview progressed, the atmosphere remained electric. The audience oscillated between laughter and attentive silence, unsure whether the next exchange would be humorous or heated. Producers in the control room monitored every second, ready to cut to commercial if necessary. This was live television at its most unpredictable, raw, unscripted, and charged with possibility. By the time the segment reached its midpoint, it was clear that this would not be a forgettable promotional stop. Whether it would be remembered as a masterclass in candid conversation or as one of the most explosive moments in daytime television remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: when Hollywood's most unpredictable legend met daytime television's most controversial host, the result was a spectacle that no one in that studio or watching from home would soon forget. Jack Nicholson stepped onto the set of The View with the kind of effortless authority that only a true Hollywood legend could command. The studio lights seemed to follow him as he emerged from backstage, his posture relaxed yet undeniably commanding. He raised a hand in greeting, flashing that unmistakable grinthorn that had both captivated and unsettled audiences for more than half a century. It was the grin of a man who had seen it all, done it all, and remained unapologetically himself. Through every era of fame, he was dressed impeccably, as always. A perfectly tailored black suit hugged his frame with understated elegance, the fabric catching the light as he moved. His crisp white shirt contrasted sharply against the dark jacket, and perched casually atop his head were his signature sunglasses, a subtle reminder of the mystique that had long surrounded him. The audience erupted into applause, some rising slightly from their seats, as if instinctively compelled to honor his presence. There was something electric about the atmosphere, an unspoken acknowledgment that this was no ordinary guest. As he approached the iconic round table, Nicholson gave a playful nod to the hosts before taking his seat. The energy shifted almost instantly. Even seasoned television professionals could not entirely mask the impact of his presence. Whoopi Goldberg, ever the gracious moderator, leaned forward with a welcoming smile. "Jack, thank you so much for being here," Whoopi said warmly, her voice steady but tinged with genuine admiration. "We're thrilled to have you." Nicholson inclined his head slightly, that gravelly, unmistakable voice filling the studio as he responded, "The pleasure is all mine, ladies." His tone carried the textured depth audiences had come to associate with countless unforgettable performances. He paused briefly, allowing a hint of playful mischief to color his expression. "Though I have to say, this is quite an intimidating panel you've got here." The audience laughed appreciatively, relieved by the humor. For a brief, shining moment, everything felt perfectly normal light-hearted banter between accomplished professionals. Sarah Noffin, affectionately referred to as Sarah, unsmiled brightly, her expression betraying a touch of genuine starstruck excitement. Beside her, Alyssa Farrah Griffin maintained a polite, yet visibly impressed, composure, clearly aware that she was sharing a table with cinematic royalty, but not everyone at the table mirrored the relaxed tone. Joy Behar remained still, her expression unreadable, while the others exchanged pleasantries. Joy's eyes studied Nicholson with an intensity that suggested calculation rather than admiration. There was no visible warmth in her gaze-only focus. "So, Jack," Joy began, leaning forward slightly. The subtle shift in her posture did not go unnoticed. There was an almost predatory precision in the way she framed her body toward him, as if preparing for a strategic move. "Let's talk about your new film." Nicholson nodded politely, ready to pivot into promotion mode. But Joy continued before he could respond. "But first," she added, her voice sharpening just enough to change the temperature in the room, "I think our audience would like to hear about some of your past comments regarding women in Hollywood." The shift was immediate and palpable. The laughter died. The air seemed to thicken. Nicholson's smile faded not, dramatically but perceptibly. He did not bristle outright. Instead, he adjusted slightly in his chair, maintaining composure. His response came measured and deliberate. "Well, Joy," he said evenly, "I think context is everything, don't you?" "What exactly are you referring to?" There was no anger in his tone, only a controlled curiosity. Yet the undercurrent of challenge was unmistakable. "Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean," Joy shot back quickly, her voice taking on a sharper edge. The warmth that had characterized the opening moments was gone. "Your attitude toward your female co-stars over the years has been, shall we say, questionable at best. A murmur rippled faintly through the audience. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward, sensing the escalation. Whoopi attempted to gently steer the conversation back to safer territory. "Joy, maybe we should focus on Jack's current project," she interjected diplomatically, her tone calm but firm. But Joy did not retreat. "No, I think this matters," she insisted. "He is a man who's been in Hollywood for over 50 years, and there are plenty of stories about his behavior on set, stories that simply wouldn't be acceptable." Today, Nicholson's jaw tightened slightly, a subtle tension visible beneath his otherwise composed exterior. Yet when he spoke, his voice remained steady. "Stories," he repeated slowly. "Joy or gossip. There's a big difference. And a responsible journalist should understand that." The word journalist seemed to strike a nerve. "Are you questioning my journalistic integrity?" Joy snapped, her voice rising just enough to echo faintly against the studio walls. Several audience members exchanged uneasy glances. The tension was no longer subtle, it was front and center. "I'm questioning your motives," Nicholson replied calmly. His posture remained relaxed, but his eyes sharpened with unmistakable intensity. "You invited me here to talk about my work, yet it seems you'd rather play prosecutor." The accusation hung heavily in the air. Sarah Inn glanced anxiously between the two, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation had taken. Alyssa Farrah Griffin sat unusually still, her expression frozen somewhere between concern and disbelief. Neither seemed eager to interject. "My motives are perfectly clear," Joy fired back. "I'm holding you accountable for decades of problematic behavior. Someone has to." Nicholson leaned back slightly in his chair, folding his hands loosely in front of him. The familiar cinematic intensity, the same force that had made his on-screen performances so magnetic, began to surface in his expression. "Problematic according to whom?" he asked quietly. "You? Since when did you become the moral authority on Hollywood?" The question was not shouted. It did not need to be. Its calm delivery made it all the more powerful. Joy's eyes flashed. "Since I decided to stop letting men like you slide by on charm and reputation alone," she retorted. The audience fell completely silent. What had begun as a routine promotional interview had transformed into something far more: a literal clash between generational perspectives, power dynamics, and public accountability. Every camera in the studio captured the moment from multiple angles. Nicholson's controlled but simmering intensity, Joy's unwavering defiance, Whoopi's measured concern. The atmosphere now felt charged, almost combustible. This was no longer about a film release. It had become a broader confrontation, one that symbolized shifting cultural standards and the scrutiny faced by long-standing icons in a changing industry. Nicholson's expression hardened slightly, though he did not raise his voice. Joy, for her part, remained unflinching, prepared to continue the line of questioning regardless of the discomfort rippling through the room. And in that suspended moment before the next words were spoken, the studio seemed to hold its breath, fully aware that what would follow might define not just the interview, but perhaps even the legacy of that unforgettable television encounter.